Here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Well, here on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network, it's not fun and games today at all. At all. What we are seeing in Israel at the Gaza Strip is horrific. 2,200 rockets launched into Israel by Hamas is unconscionable. And there needs to be not just figuring out how it slipped through the intel that this attack on the 50th anniversary of the War of 1973 on Yom Kippur seemingly passed through not only Israel's most up-to-date, steps ahead intelligence, but also ours. It's a moment where Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, can put down his damn guitar and maybe get to work and figure out who exactly was asleep at the wheel. That's what he needs to focus on. They're also figuring out, unfortunately, how many Americans are killed. And really the very latest I have to say is right now, the unfortunateness is that at least 4 Americans have been killed, reports are saying, in Israel. Over 300 have been killed entirely. And Blinken today was on with ABC, NBC. He did the circuit. And he said, we have a very close relationship with Israeli intelligence, as well as the Israeli military, as well as Israel more broadly. Yes, of course, this is something that they will be looking at, a.k.a. reviewing what led to the intelligence failure that left the Middle Eastern country, surprised by Hamas's fatal terror attack on Saturday. But what I'm about to play you kind of blows the mind of any sane person. What I'm about to play you is an admission from Secretary Blinken that we all know, okay? That we all know about where the funding to Iran goes. Take a listen to what he told Kristen Welker on Meet the Press today. If this doesn't boil your blood, I don't know what will. But take a listen to Secretary Blinken on Meet the Press today when it came to, hey, how did Hamas get this money? I wonder where it came from. Well, Secretary Blinken openly admits this.
What do you say about the argument that money is fungible? So Iran may have known this money is coming and used other funds to help fund this attack that happened.
Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like Hamas, and it's done that when there have been sanctions. It's done that when there haven't been sanctions, and it's always prioritized that.
Now, remember back on August 10th, the Daily News, New York Times, everybody reported that, oh my God, this is great. 5 American hostages were freed from Iran. But you know how much money was given back to Iran for these freed hostages? $6 billion. Who really won there? Yes, we got 5 Americans home, but let me ask you, who really won there? I would still say, tragically, Iran, because they were able to fund terror. They have lawmakers, at CNN showed this, and others outlets, cheering death to Israel, death to America. Now, that may be old footage, but you know what? That's a feeling that Iranian government officials have to this day. And we're just going to give them more and more and more. Is that really the right move, Secretary Blinken? President Biden? Bueller? And the other thing about all of this that I've been feeling is, I'm glad my family in Israel is safe right now, whose names will be anonymous, but I'm glad that my part of the family is safe in Israel. But you know what I think? I think this has been brewing for a while. I think there is definitely a sleep at the switch. I think that this shows an administration who claims, listen to President Biden here, he claims they stand with Israel, but have they the whole administration? Or have they just kind of not minded what was going on over in Israel and the planning and the terror planning going on over there? But President Biden insists that this administration stands with Israel. Take a listen.
You know, when I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning, I told him the United States stands with the people of Israel in the face of these terrorist assaults. Israel has the right to defend itself and its people. Full stop. There's never justification for terrorist attacks.
Now, what I want to know about that specific audio is this. If this wasn't ruled terrorism and just a random act of violence done by a lone wolf, if you will, would President Biden still stand with Israel? I would hope so, but I don't know. We're now giving $8 billion of aid to the Israelis. You know, the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, is one of the most up-to-date, if not future-minded, military agencies out there. So what happened? The IDF is always ahead of the game. Could this have come within the Netanyahu administration? I wouldn't even think to blame the Israeli administration for these terror attacks, only to say, yes, the intel should be looked at 100%. The lack of intel should be investigated 100%. But to throw him under the bus for this, I mean, maybe you have to hold him accountable. But right now, you just got to help the man out. You may hate Bibi Netanyahu as much as anybody else, but right now, America needs to help him out. Help the people of Israel out. And you could say, and I've always thought, well, this has sort of been a long-standing conflict. And what would American involvement look like? Would it be forming a two-state solution, a one-state solution? What would that look like? And no American, well, maybe, you know, Trump did get the Israelis and these different Arab countries to the table, which was quite a achievement, but with the Abraham Accords. But at the end of the day, no American present has truly had the answer to solving this conflict. And I'm not asking Biden to solve the conflict here. I'm just saying we need to look at where all of the pieces fell apart for this terrorist attack to attack against Israel originated from, was funded from. Because we have to get to the root of this. In addition to helping Israelis now in bomb shelters and whatnot feel safe, stay safe, be safe. And, you know, a couple of weeks ago, there were a bunch of Israeli supporters, Israeli Jewish Americans outside the Israeli consulate at the UN. One of them held a sign saying, F you, Bibi. And I thought, you know, Israel barely gets any love at the UN. Any love. And now the one time you're out there voicing support for Israel, it's against Netanyahu, who is probably doing what he can to fight off the radicals that literally try and enter the country. The terrorists who try and enter the country. So to say F you, Bibi didn't make sense to me because I think he I would hope, is trying to do right by the country. Yes, there have been a lot of changes in Israel, and it's gone a little more to the left. But at the end of the day, you go out to the UN and protest in favor of Israel, and the protest is against your leader, instead of actually telling the UN, hey, focus on Israel, focus on the conflict. That's where the issue should be lying at. That's what should be laid at the feet of the UN, is they're not focused on the conflict. No one is ever really focused on the conflict until there is conflict. And that's what's happened here. Eyes have been taken off the ball. Lives have been killed. Israeli lives, now unfortunately Palestinian civilian lives. I mean, it's a bloody mess over there. No one has figured out how to have one leg up on Hamas. And that's what this podcast is titled today. Having one leg up on that terrorist organization. And how do you do it? You cut the funding to Iran. Maybe, just maybe, you even, I don't know, be a little more aware of what's going on in this intel breakdown. Because how does this happen? The one man who I think is doing what he can to make sure Israel is visible and literally represented at the UN is Israel's own ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, who said this outside the UN earlier today.
The UN Security Council will meet today to discuss the developments in Israel. Israel is facing brutal terror attacks, the likes of which we have never seen before. This is our 9/11. The civilized world must stand with Israel and with our right to self-defense.
Israel says that they've had war crimes committed against them. I do not blame them one bit. But the history of the UN Security Council has never really fully been pro-Israel. Can we agree on that? And so the blood is on many hands here. The help is needed. And that's where our focus should be right now. But for Blinken to say this, again going back to meet the press, we need more time.
But Mr. Secretary, do you acknowledge that both Israeli intelligence officials and U.S. intelligence officials were caught off guard here?
This is an attack that I don't think anyone saw coming in the immediate.
So was it an intelligence failure, Mr. Secretary? Do you acknowledge it was an intelligence failure?
We will have plenty of time to. The Israelis will have plenty of time to look into that.
Time is of the essence, Secretary Blinken. Figure it out now so that more attacks are not able to happen, are prevented. And for the Republicans that decided to shake up the House the week of the anniversary of this, shame on you too. See, America's eyes are not on where they should be. This whole Gates fiasco, I mean, it's all part of it. We are all being caught off guard every day with news, and disturbing news at that. Meanwhile, the real enemy is just laughing and attacking, and there needs to be somebody to change that. And I'll let you decide who that somebody's going to be. But this cannot stand. This cannot be. We need to have one leg up for Israel and against terrorism once again. Dare I say, once and for all. Once and for all. On the Alex Garrett Podcast Network.